The bond between a mother and child is profound, a tapestry woven with threads of unconditional love, fierce protectiveness, and a deep-seated intuition that defies logic. From the moment my daughter Lily entered the world, I felt an unbreakable connection, a silent language we shared through a simple touch, a knowing glance. Her laughter was my symphony, her tears my tempest. Lily, with her infectious giggle and bright, inquisitive eyes, had just turned 8, her world a kaleidoscope of vibrant imagination and boundless energy. She was the sunshine in my life, chasing away shadows with her infectious joy. I cherished our bedtime rituals, reading her favorite stories until her eyelids grew heavy, her small hand clutching mine as she drifted off to sleep. Tonight was no different. I kissed her forehead, whispered, "Mummy loves you," and tiptoed out of her room, feeling the familiar warmth of her love envelop me. The insistent ringing of the phone tore me from a restless sleep. Disoriented, I fumbled for the receiver, my heart pounding an erratic tattoo against my ribs. It was Lily's teacher, her voice strained, urgent. "Mrs. Evans, I need you to come to the school right away. It's about Lily." A wave of nausea washed over me. "What's happened? Is she all right?" My voice was a choked whisper, my breath catching in my throat. The teacher hesitated, her silence more terrifying than any words. "Just come quickly," she finally said, hanging up the phone. Panic clawed at the edges of my mind. I raced to Lily's room, my heart a drum in my chest. She wasn't in her bed. Her favourite stuffed animal, Mr. Snuggles, lay abandoned on the pillow, a lump forming in my throat. Where was she? Why was her teacher calling in the middle of the night? Fear, cold and sharp, pierced through the fog of my sleep-addled state. Something was terribly wrong. The drive to the school was a blur. My thoughts were a chaotic jumble of fear and confusion. The school was eerily quiet, the playground deserted beneath the pale glow of the streetlights. As I rushed into the building, my steps echoing in the stillness, I was met by the sight of Lily's teacher, her face pale and drawn, standing outside the principal's office. "Mrs. Evans," she began, her voice trembling slightly, "we found Lily wandering the halls just now. She's in with the principal." Relief washed over me, momentarily eclipsing the fear that had been gnawing at my insides. Lily was okay. She was safe. But as I stepped into the principal's office, a sense of unease settled over me. Lily was sitting in a chair, her small frame dwarfed by the large desk, but something was off. Her usually vibrant eyes were downcast, her gaze distant and vacant. Her lips were moving, but no sound escaped. "Lily, sweetheart," I said softly, kneeling before her. "It's Mummy. What's wrong?" She didn't respond, her gaze fixed on some unseen point on the floor. The principal, a stern woman with a tight bun, cleared her throat. "Mrs. Evans, Lily has been acting very strangely. She claims that she's not Lily, that her real mother is coming to get her." My blood ran cold. What was she talking about? This had to be some sort of nightmare. I reached out and gently took Lily's hand in mine. It was cold, unnaturally so. She didn't react to my touch, her hand remaining limp in mine. Suddenly, the phone on the principal's desk rang, shattering the tense silence. The principal answered, her face draining of colour as she listened to the voice on the other end of the line. Section 5. A growing unease. The principal's hand trembled as she hung up the phone. She looked at me, her eyes wide with a mixture of fear and disbelief. "That was the police," she said, her voice barely a whisper. "There's been an accident, a car accident." My heart lurched in my chest. What was she talking about? "An accident?" I repeated, my voice catching in my throat. The principal took a deep breath, her gaze flickering to Lily, who remained unnervingly still in her chair. "Mrs. Evans," she said slowly, "the police are on their way here. They need to speak with you. About your daughter." Confusion and a growing sense of dread swirled within me. Why were the police involved? And what did this have to do with Lily? As I waited for the police to arrive, Lily continued to sit motionless, her silence amplifying the unease that was quickly turning into full-blown panic. What was happening? Why did I feel like I was trapped in a horrifying dream? Section 6. A Mother's Intuition. The arrival of the police did little to ease the tension that had gripped the room. The officers, a man and a woman, exchanged uneasy glances with the principal before turning their attention to me. Their faces were etched with a somber expression that sent a shiver down my spine. "Mrs. Evans, we need to ask you a few questions about your daughter, Lily," the male officer began, his voice gruff but not unkind. "Can you tell us about your evening?" I recounted the events of the night, from tucking Lily into bed to the frantic phone call from the school. The officers listened intently, their faces betraying nothing. As I spoke, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was terribly wrong. Lily's strange behavior, the principal's phone call, the arrival of the police, none of it made sense. A mother's intuition, that deep-seated sense of knowing, whispered that something sinister was unfolding. Section 7. The Photograph. "Mrs. Evans," the female officer interrupted, her voice gentle, "we need to show you something." She placed a photograph on the table in front of me. My breath hitched in my throat as I looked down at the image. It was Lily. Or rather, it should have been Lily. The girl in the photograph had the same bright eyes, the same mischievous grin, but her hair was different, longer, darker, and she was wearing a dress I had never seen before. "This little girl," the officer continued, her voice heavy with sympathy, "was found wandering alone near the highway. She was disoriented, confused. She said her name was Lily and that she was looking for her mother." My heart pounded against my ribs. The girl in the photograph was not my Lily, but she looked so much like her, like she could have been her twin. What was going on? Section 8. Unveiling the Truth. The officers explained that the little girl in the photograph had been involved in a car accident. Her parents, they informed me, had been killed instantly. The girl, miraculously, had survived, but she was in shock, clinging to the only reality she knew, that her name was Lily, and she was looking for her mother. As the pieces of the puzzle fell into place, a horrifying realization dawned on me. The girl in the principal's office, the one who claimed she wasn't Lily, the one who hadn't reacted to my touch, she wasn't my daughter. She was an imposter, a lost soul, desperately clinging to the identity of a dead child. But how? Why? And where was my real Lily? The questions swirled in my mind, a vortex of fear and confusion. Section 9. Confrontation. Terror, raw and primal, surged through me. I spun around to face the imposter, the girl who had been sitting so calmly, so eerily still, in the chair just moments ago. But the chair was empty. "Where is she?" I screamed, my voice echoing through the silent office. "What have you done with my daughter?" Panic clawed at my throat, threatening to choke me. The principal and the officers exchanged uneasy looks. They had dismissed the girl's claims as the ramblings of a traumatized child. But I knew the truth. That creature, that imposter, was not human. It was something else, something sinister, and it had taken my Lily. Section 10. Desolation. Days turned into weeks, weeks into months, and still there was no sign of Lily. The police investigation yielded no leads, and hope, once a flickering flame, dwindled with each passing day. The imposter, the girl who had taken my daughter's place, was gone too, vanished into thin air. I was left with nothing but the haunting memory of that night, the chilling realization that the child I had tucked into bed, the one whose hand I had held, was not my daughter. The bond we shared, The love that had been the very core of my being had been twisted into a cruel mockery. Grief, all-consuming and relentless, became my only companion. The world continued to turn, but my own had stopped, frozen in that moment of realization of unbearable loss. My Lily was gone, and the truth, as cold and unforgiving as a winter's night, remained buried in a shroud of mystery.